In an age when Israel's enemies crushed them, God raised an unexpected leader. Not a warrior, not a king, but a woman named Deborah. Her courage would shake kingdoms and change history forever. For 20 years the Canaanites ruled over Israel with iron chariots and merciless oppression. Hope seemed lost, until a prophetic voice rose, calling the nation back to God. She was not just a judge, she was a prophet. From beneath her palm tree, Deborah delivered the wisdom of God, and soon, a prophecy would set the battlefield ablaze. If you love uncovering powerful Bible stories like this, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the victories God writes through his people. One day, Deborah summoned a warrior named Barak. She told him the Lord's command, "Take 10,000 men to Mount Tabor, for I will deliver Sisera, commander of the Canaanite army, into your hands." It was a call to faith, not comfort. Barak's heart pounded. Facing Sisera's iron chariots meant certain death. He told Deborah, "I will go, but only if you go with me." It was not just a request, it was a confession of fear mixed with faith. Deborah agreed to go but warned Barak, "Because of the way you are going, the honor will not be yours. The Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." A prophecy was set in motion that would shock everyone. From the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali, men rallied to Deborah and Barak's call. 10,000 soldiers ascended Mount Tabor ready for war, yet outnumbered, under-equipped, and facing impossible odds. Meanwhile, Sisera heard of Israel's gathering. With 900 iron chariots and countless soldiers, he marched to the Kishon River. His confidence was unshakable. He believed no force could stop him. Deborah stood before the army on Mount Tabor and declared, "This is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" Her voice pierced the fear, igniting courage. Barak led his men down the slopes. 10,000 Israelites charged toward Sisera's mighty army. Every step was a declaration of faith, that God, not numbers, decides the outcome. As the battle began, dark clouds gathered. Torrential rain flooded the valley, turning the battlefield into mud. The iron chariots, once unstoppable, were trapped in God's ambush. The Canaanite army fell into confusion. Soldiers abandoned their chariots, slipping and stumbling in the mire. Israel's warriors struck with precision, knowing victory was near. Seeing his army destroyed, Sisera leapt from his chariot and fled on foot. The once feared commander now ran for his life, desperately seeking a place to hide. Breathless, Sisera spotted the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber. Thinking he had found refuge among allies, he approached, unaware that this meeting would seal his fate. Jael stepped forward with a warm smile. She greeted Sisera and invited him inside. Exhausted and drenched from the storm, Sisera believed he had found sanctuary. Jael covered him with a blanket, masking her true intentions. Outside, the wind howled, but inside, a silent and deadly plan began to form in her mind. Parched and trembling, Sisera asked for water. Jael instead gave him milk, warm and soothing, to calm him and make him drowsy. He gulped it down, feeling his eyelids grow heavy. Outside, the echoes of battle faded and Jael's heartbeat slowed, knowing the moment of decision was near. Sisera, believing himself safe, lay down to rest. He told Jael to stand watch at the tent door, certain his pursuers would soon pass by. Within moments, exhaustion and the milk's effect pulled him into deep sleep. But Jael stood still, her eyes fixed. She knew exactly what she must do. Jael moved quietly to the corner of the tent, taking a heavy hammer and a long tent peg. She approached the sleeping commander, her steps slow but steady. The storm outside masked every sound as her mind replayed the prophecy. The Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman. In one swift and decisive motion, Jael drove the tent peg through Sisera's temple and into the ground beneath him. The mighty commander of Canaan's army breathed his last without a final cry. Jael's courage had ended the terror of Sisera, fulfilling Deborah's prophecy to the letter. Not long after, Barak arrived at Jael's tent, sword in hand, searching for Sisera. Jael stepped out to meet him and said, "Come, I will show you the man you are looking for." Barak entered, and saw Sisera lying lifeless, the tent peg still in place. The battle had been won by unexpected hands. News of Sisera's death spread swiftly through Israel. The people rejoiced not only for the victory but for the way God had delivered them, through a prophetess, a reluctant warrior and a courageous woman with no sword. Soon, Deborah's voice rose in a song of praise. Deborah and Barak sang together. When the princes of Israel take the lead, when the people willingly offer themselves, praise the Lord. Their song celebrated courage, divine intervention, and the downfall of those who opposed God. In the song, Deborah honored Jael above all women. Most blessed is Jael, the wife of Heber the Canaanite. She sang of how Jael offered milk instead of water, how her hands struck Sisera down, and how the enemy's mother waited in vain for his return. With Sisera gone, King Jabin of Canaan's power quickly crumbled. Israel grew stronger, and for the next 40 years the land knew peace. Deborah's leadership had not only brought military victory but also restored hope to a nation that had been on the brink of despair. Deborah's name became a symbol of wisdom, courage, and faith. She was more than a judge. She was a shepherd of her people, a voice of God in a dark age, and proof that leadership is measured not by gender, but by obedience to the Lord. Her story reminds us that God often chooses unexpected people for his greatest missions. Deborah was not a warrior, yet she led an army. Jael was not a soldier, yet she struck down a commander. In God's hands, courage is more powerful than any weapon. The rainstorm that trapped Sisera's chariots was no accident. It was divine timing. Every drop, every gust of wind was part of a plan written long before the battle began. Deborah trusted God's timing, and so the impossible became reality. Deborah's call to battle worked because the tribes answered together. No single tribe could defeat Sisera alone, but united under God's command they became unstoppable. Victory came when everyone played their part. Deborah's final gift to Israel was not only peace but a song that would be remembered for generations. Her melody carried the memory of courage, faith, and the unshakable truth that when God fights for his people, no enemy can stand. As the day of battle drew near, the camp buzzed with a strange mix of fear and anticipation. Israel's warriors sharpened their swords, whispered prayers, and looked to the hills, wondering if God would truly deliver them. Deborah walked among them, her presence a quiet reassurance that they were not alone. Even Barak felt his courage grow as he saw the fire in her eyes, a reminder that they were not fighting for glory, but for the freedom of God's people. Meanwhile, in the Canaanite camp, Sisera's men polished the armor of their mighty chariots. The sound of iron wheels clattering on the hard ground echoed through the valley. To them, this battle was already won. Their superior weapons and numbers seemed unshakable. Yet high above the battlefield, storm clouds began to gather, unnoticed by those who trusted in the strength of man rather than the will of God. On the morning of the battle, Deborah stood before the army, her voice clear and steady. "This is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" Her words cut through the fog of fear. The men gripped their spears tighter, the pounding of their hearts matching the rhythm of war drums. It was time to move. With Deborah's command, Barak led the army down from Mount Tabor. The ground trembled as hundreds of feet moved in unison. Across the plain, Sisera's chariots roared forward. The clash of two forces, one armed with human might, the other with the promises of God, was about to begin. Just as the chariots gained speed, the sky broke open. Sheets of rain pounded the earth, turning the battlefield into thick, clinging mud. The mighty wheels of Sisera's chariots sank and stuck fast. What they trusted in became their downfall. Israel's foot soldiers surged forward, now evenly matched, perhaps even favored. Confusion swept through the Canaanite ranks. Horses reared in fear, drivers abandoned their chariots, and the once disciplined army became a chaotic mass. Israel's warriors struck with fierce determination, their courage multiplied by the clear hand of God at work. Realizing the battle was lost, Sisera leapt from his chariot and fled on foot. His armor weighed heavy, but his fear drove him faster. Somewhere in the distance he saw what looked like safety: the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Canaanite, an ally of his king. He did not know that God's judgment would find him there. Jael stepped out to meet Sisera with a warm smile. "Come in, my lord, do not be afraid," she said. She offered him milk, covered him with a blanket, and let him rest. Exhaustion overtook him quickly. But as he slept, Jael knew exactly what she must do to end the tyranny that had plagued Israel for so long. With steady hands and unwavering resolve, Jael took a tent peg and a hammer. In a single decisive act she struck, and Sisera's reign of terror ended forever. The victory belonged not to the might of Israel's army alone, but to the unexpected instruments God chose to use. When the battle was over, Deborah and Barak sang a song of praise to the Lord who had delivered them. It told of leaders who took charge, of people who offered themselves willingly, and of a God who fights for his people. The story of Deborah became a beacon for generations, a reminder that God's power is not bound by human expectation. With Sisera gone, the Canaanite oppression crumbled. Villages that once hid in fear now rang with laughter. Farmers returned to their fields, mothers walked the roads without fear, and the children of Israel could finally breathe freely again. God had brought peace, and it came through the courage of a prophetess and a woman with a tent peg. Deborah didn't fade into the background after the battle. She continued to judge Israel, settling disputes with wisdom and guiding the people in God's ways. Her presence became a reminder that true leadership is not about power, but about serving with faithfulness and courage. Barak, once hesitant, emerged from the war with newfound strength. He had seen firsthand that victory does not depend on human confidence but on trusting God. Deborah's bold faith had reshaped him, making him a leader who would inspire others long after the chariots of Sisera were gone. The story of Deborah and Jael became a lesson passed down for generations, that God often chooses the unexpected to accomplish his plans. It was a reminder to the people that no one is too small, too weak, or too unlikely for God to use in mighty ways. In the years that followed, Israel worshipped with renewed devotion. Songs of gratitude filled the air, and offerings were brought to the Lord who had delivered them. The people knew it was not their swords or skill that had saved them, but the God who fought for them. Every time the wind swept across the Jezreel valley, the elders would tell the young about the day the storm came, the chariots stuck and the mighty Sisera fell. Deborah's name became a symbol of faith, courage and God's unstoppable power. Deborah's courage wasn't just remembered in Israel, it spread to neighboring lands. Travelers would pass through, carrying tales of the woman who led warriors and the God who delivered his people. Her life became proof that God's power knows no boundaries of gender, rank, or expectation. Jael returned to her tent not seeking fame. But in every corner of Israel her name was honored. Mothers told their daughters of the woman who struck down a tyrant with her own hands. Her bravery became a quiet but powerful reminder that God can use the willing no matter where they are. Under Deborah's leadership, Israel experienced rare unity. The tribes so often divided had stood together as one. And for the first time in years, the people began to believe that if they obeyed God, no enemy could ever truly defeat them. For 40 years the land had rest. No invading army marched through their fields, no enemy chariots thundered at their gates. The peace was not just the absence of war, it was the presence of God's blessing over a people who had turned back to him. But peace can be a dangerous gift. As the years passed, some forgot the cost of freedom. The urgency to follow God faded and hearts grew complacent. Deborah's voice, though still respected, was now one among many competing for Israel's attention. In her later years, Deborah continued to judge with fairness and wisdom. She saw generations grow who had never known the terrors of war. Yet she knew peace was fragile, and that the real battle was to keep Israel's heart faithful to the Lord. Even after she was gone, her song lived on. It was sung at weddings, harvest feasts, and around campfires, a reminder of the God who delivered Israel through a prophetess, a warrior, and a woman with a tent peg. Deborah's life was proof that obedience to God changes nations. She had no army of her own, no political power, only a heart fully surrendered to God. And that was enough to shape history. Her story still speaks to us today. God calls the willing, not the qualified. He works through the bold, the humble, and the faithful. Deborah's courage challenges us to trust him completely, even when the odds seem impossible. Deborah's song ends, but her legacy continues in every act of courage done for God. Will we rise like Deborah when he calls? Will we step into the battle trusting his power to win the victory? Her story is not just history, it's a challenge for us today.